One of the things I think that's real important to make people in this area aware of is really how the Cape Fear River and the water supply that it delivers to the city of Fayetteville, how it really kind of all got started. A good place to begin is 1945. There was a very serious flood occurred in 1945, and local governmental leaders and others in the community felt that there was a need to put in a reservoir and dam somewhere to control flooding, and that was essentially the birth of the idea of Jordan Lake. And when Jordan Lake was envisioned, it was envisioned as not only being a dam and reservoir that would provide flood control downriver, but that it also would be used for recreation and water supply, and also to supply water to the Cape Fear River during dry periods. That dam is operated by the Corps of Engineers, and they've got guidelines that they have to follow. There is water in Jordan Lake that's available for water supply in the Research Triangle area, and there's some of that taking place, but there's also a certain amount of water in Jordan Lake that is reserved to keep our flows downstream adequate for water supply and recreation and boating and so forth. And the Corps determines how much is to be released and has various gauging stations on streams, and they keep up with how much flows there are available in the river. And they try to meet a flow limit, a flow target at Lillington, which becomes very important during drought conditions like we're currently in, because if it were not for the releases from Jordan Lake, the Cape Fear River, as you see it today, would be quite a bit lower than it actually is. If anybody asked me what was one of the 5 best things that ever happened to Fayetteville, it was when Jordan Lake was built, because number one, it's reduced. I don't believe there's been any serious flooding in Fayetteville as a result of the Cape Fear River since that dam was built. And as far as the droughts that have occurred over the last 20, 25 years, Fayetteville has had to implement some, water shortage, mandatory conservation type measures, but for the most part, it serves the purpose of keeping the flow steady during the drought conditions. So, in a lot of ways, Jordan Lake is kind of like our reservoir, and we've benefited quite a bit from that. There's plenty of water available for PWC for the short term and also for the long term, as far as water supply needs go. We, on the yearly average, probably run about 25 million gallons a day for a yearly average. But during the summertime, when, especially like with recent droughts that we've had, those flows can jump up to 33, 34, 38 million gallons a day. So we're the biggest user immediately downstream from the lake. We also put water back in the river from our wastewater treatment plants. So on any given day, we may be putting as much water back in the river from our wastewater treatment facilities as we're actually taking out. Now during the summertime, it's a little out of balance because of irrigation water that doesn't actually make it back to the sewer system. If you look at how much of an effect we're having, it's not a 33 million gallon day effect. It's more like maybe 4 or 5 million gallons a day that's actually lost and doesn't come back into the river. One of the other things that's real important to keep in mind with the Cape Fear River and how it affects Fayetteville does have to do with the lock and dams that are in place. Lock and Dam 3, which is the one that's closest to Fayetteville, actually backs up water to Fayetteville and several miles beyond Fayetteville because it's so flat around here. Now a dam 10, 15 feet high in a flat area will back up water a great distance. So Lock and Dam 3 does help to keep our intake submerged during low flow. So we've got the benefit of essentially a run of river dam, if you would, because of what's happening with Lock and Dam number 3. And then we also have Jordan Lake, which supplies flows during the summertime to keep the river at a reasonable level. I guess one of the issues that really, in my opinion, showed just how much Fayetteville and Cumberland County can accomplish when they all pull together was what went on during the Cary Apex interbasin transfer issue that started about 2001 was about the time period that all took place. And there was a very concerted, unified effort to make sure that the folks with state government understood that we didn't have any problem with Cary, Apex, etc. using the water. We wanted to make sure they returned it, that we didn't at some point down the future run into problems from interbasin transfer, because the water would be leaving the Cape Fear River Basin and being discharged into the Neuse River Basin. The state government, the Environmental Management Commission got the message, and as a matter of fact, with the Cary Apex IBT, that is the first one where a certificate was issued with a requirement that they return water as a condition of getting water. According to the certificate, they're supposed to have the treatment plant operational by the end of 2010, and they are honoring their word and what's required in the certificate to get that water back. So we are monitoring that. You know, the Cape Fear River Basin is the largest river basin in the state of North Carolina, and is either, if it's not the most heavily populated, it's the second most heavily populated. So there's a lot of demands on the water resources in Cape Fear River, and so what happens upstream of us and what happens downstream of us may seem like it's distant and unrelated, but a lot of times it does directly affect us, because we're all in the same watershed. But just as another example of that is the questions that have been raised about the locks and dams and whether or not they need to be maintained or removed. And certainly, given the importance of Lock and Dam 3 and its effect on our water supply and our water intake and so forth, we became involved very early on in the stakeholder meetings to provide input, make sure they understood what our concerns were. And the Corps of Engineers that's running this study will be starting to make some of their final decisions on this in the next, couple of 3 months. Well, one of the strategic responsibilities that Public Works Commission has for not only Fayetteville but Cumberland County is to do what we need to do to try to assure a long-term, adequate, reliable water supply. As our state gets bigger and bigger, there's going to be more demands put on the river. And so strategically speaking, we have to be looking not only what we need to do in the next 5 or 10 years, but also 20, 30, 50 years down the road, because when an area runs out of water, the area will not be able to continue to grow and develop, and quality of life and that kind of thing. So that's why it's so important for us to continue our work on drought management plans. We're also involved with an initiative that we're going to be starting this fall, having to do with some better long-term planning for water demands on the Cape Fear River. Wilmington's getting bigger, the coast is getting bigger, they're dependent on the Cape Fear River for water. Our area with BRAC and other development that we have going on is a regional center that we have here in the southeast. We're going to need additional water as time goes on. People upstream are going to need more water, and then everybody in between. So it is real important to us to make sure that we keep an eye on the river and try to make sure if somebody has a proposal that looks like it may cause a problem with future water supply, that we identify it early and then roll up our sleeves and try to come up with an alternative or options for making sure that everybody gets their fair share.